What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice & Dragons, we are going to be reviewing Arising Darkness, the second core box for the Transformers deck building game, published by Renegade Game Studios and designed by Dan Blanchett and Matt Hyra. Now, this will be adding a new mode to the game as well as the Decepticons. You can now play team versus team, so Autobots versus Decepticons. I mean, that's the whole plot of Transformers. And on that note, I'm going to toss it over to Julie, who will tell you more about the game itself.
Well, first, we'd like to thank Renegade Games for this review copy. Thank you for your support of the channel. But we'd like to remind our viewers that our opinions will remain our own. So this is a cooperative or a competitive game, as Jason mentioned. It can be played 1 to 5 players in 45 to 90 minutes and is intended for ages 14 and above.
So what we have in front of us right now is the team versus team setup. We've done the advanced setup where we've mixed in both core boxes so we can check it out. And what will you be doing in the game? Well, it's the same whether you're playing cooperative or competitively, just that if you're competing against each other, you'll be trying to get these victory points. You'll be moving around the matrix, revealing cards, attempting to acquire cards, and, you know, defeat enemy bosses and things like that. Now, the way to win the game is if you're playing cooperatively to defeat all 3 enemy bosses before the matrix deck runs out. If you're playing competitively, you need to have the most amount of victory points, and the game will end when all bosses have been defeated for one side. Or if you're playing competitively, Decepticons versus Decepticons, when all 3 bosses are defeated. Or if the deck happens to run out, then you're going to compare who's got the most victory points. So you're trying to see who did the best while you're playing the game. Did I miss anything at all, Julie?
I think you covered it.
Oh, well, don't forget you're going to be in your alternate mode. You're going to transform into your robot mode. So it's Transformers. You're going to be using all sorts of pretty cool abilities while you play the game. So now we're going to grab our drink, grab our best friend. Wait, do Decepticons have friends or just frenemies? I don't know.
We're going to take it to the table one more time.
One more time. Now we're going to take a quick look at the components for the Transformers deck building game Arising Darkness. If you happen to watch the components section for our Transformers deck building game, the base game, the original box review, this is going to be very similar to what you've seen before. We're not going to go through the details of every single card, but you get a nice idea as to what you'll be getting and some of the differences between the 2 sets of games. Now here we've got the new rulebook for Arising Darkness, and one thing that you notice if you happen to have the other game is that these rules are essentially identical. Now there will be some differences that are going to show up. For example, when it comes to damage, you'll see that there is damage and short circuit, which we will take a look at in terms of in detail in just a moment. You're going to have a lot of cards with the flight ability because the Decepticons fly. So that's one thing that we'll talk a little bit about when we get into the review. So you've got all the details as to how to play the game, then just examples of cooperative play. But what I'm trying to find here, the showcase, is really the new rules, which is team versus team rules, which essentially converts the game into Autobots versus Decepticon. Now, team versus team could also just be 1v1. So it doesn't have to be like 2v2 in order to get that experience. Now we're going to start with the basic starter cards. So this is what we've got here, enough for 5 sets. So the first one is Wrath, which gives you a power. And then with the Confront, you get +1 power for every 2 Wrath you control. So it is different than the Autobots cards. Next, we do get Hunt, which is the starter card. Similar to Patrol, pretty much identical. You may flip a card in an adjacent space face up. After that, we get Fix, so you may return 1 damage controlled by any player in your space or adjacent space to the stack, and destroy 1 starter you control. So this is also identical to the card for the Autobots. Reserves, identical as well. If you control 3 or fewer Energon, gain 1 Energon, and then Firepower is identical as well. It's really just these Wrath base cards that are different. Next, we've got the damage cards. So these ones are identical, just with new art. So when battling an adversary, you must resolve 1 assist, and then for every 2 damage you lose 1 victory point. Now here's the different damage type called Short Circuit. So on your turn, play this card before any other card in your hand, -1 power when battling adversaries this turn. So that's what happens with the Short Circuit. So it does go in your hand. That is also a little different. We have the Rise Up cards here. That actually will replace the Transform and Roll Out. So you see you get Flight, you may convert, so you can convert modes instead of Transform. Then you've got the same stats as Rise Up. Now the big difference is you don't get any bonuses for assisting, which kind of makes sense. I mean, you are Decepticons. Even if you're supposed to be working together, you don't really want to. Here you've got some of the different technology cards. So cards that let you block with Camelon Mesh, +1 power for each robot you control. Nice technology, guided missile. This card's power may only be used for battling adversaries, so that's why it's so strong. Power-ups, Headmasters, which pretty cool, and I do believe you see some of them in the Infiltration Protocol. So those are some pretty cool cards we got here. Some of the different allies you can get: Nightbird, Sean Berger, Marissa Fairborn, Facsimile Constructs, Dr. Arkville, and the Machination. So pay 2 less power to bar defeat robots in the Matrix. Pretty cool. You may steal 1 Energon from target player with 3+ Energon. You may discard 1 card, then draw a card. If you have 0 Energon, gain 2 Energon. So definitely some pretty cool stuff that you get in terms of allies. Here we have the maneuvers. So evade, flight, and block. If your character has flight, you may return 1 damage target player controls to the stack. Pretty cool. This isn't over. If you're ambushed this turn, you get to draw a card. Wingman, another block card. Mass displacement. So pretty cool stuff. And if you're a fan, you'll definitely recognize some of these scenes. Let's see. Decepticons attack. You may attack target character within range, gain 1 damage of block. That's pretty cool. To punish and enslave, you may defeat an adversary with cost 4. Then you may attack and steal 1 ally from a target player. So yeah, you're definitely going to be trying to mess with players a little bit more, which works, especially when you think that you're going to be doing things like that to Autobots. So it makes sense that, or if you get these as Autobots to Decepticons, so it does make sense that they're in the game. Some new sites. Decepticon Command Bunker, the Lunar Dome, Construction Site, Weapons Facility, Power Plant. We get some new relics to be added to the game. So the Forge of Solus Prime, Pearl of Badoon, Apex Armor, Star Saber, Enigma Combination, and Spark Extractor. Oof, extracting the spark. That's some mean stuff. Went a little out of order there, but it's not that big of a deal. Here we've got the Autobot initiatives, which replace the Decepticon schemes. So Autobots rising to power, trying to stop the Decepticons, and you have to work together to get rid of these, as they will hinder you on your way to world domination. Next, we've got the Autobot bosses: Bumblebee, RC, Ironhide, Prowl, Optimus Prime, and Omega Supreme. Now, the reveal effects do seem to be very similar to the ones on the Decepticon bosses, but the start of turn stuff is very different, such as drawing and resolving an ambush for Optimus Prime is different than destroying a card that you would get with Megatron. So here we've got the encounter deck, and so far a lot of these seem very similar to what we had before. This adversary cannot be battled. Destroy a non-starter, non-damage card. Some of them do look different, but there are definitely some similarities in this deck. And I'm just trying to see if it does look like we've got an expansion logo in the corner there. Not quite sure. We'll go to these next. Just turn sequence cards, 1 for each player, and then battle sequence cards, going over the confrontation text and how everything works. Next, we got the Autobots that join the game, and now we do have the Astrotroin promo pack. So if you don't have Ultra Magnus and Drift, that may be why. So you do get these Autobots, pretty cool. Blur, Brawn, Cosmos, Mirage, Cliff Jumper, Blaster, Hound, Another version of Jazz, Wheeljack, Cup, Ratchet, and Hot Rod. Hot Rod, I have a love-hate relationship with that character. And then we got the new Decepticons, Rat Bat, Onslaught, Laserbeak, Ravage, Mixmaster, Hook, Skywarp, Bombshell, Scrapper. I thought we already seen the Scrapper. Shrapnel, another version of Thundercracker, Soundwave, Starscream, and Megatron. Here we'll take a look at the tokens next. So we've got the double-sided tokens again. One to track movement, one to track extra power, one for ongoing effects. You can flip it over, it'll count as start of turn effects. We've got the 1-value Energon Cube and the 5-value Energon Cube. Victory points and values of 10, 5, and 1. Now we've got the standees for all of the different Decepticons. We've got Astral Train. I believe this is Scrapper. I may be wrong, though. We'll find out when we look at his card. Here we've got Megatron. I think this is Shrapnel. I don't know the Decepticons as well as I know the Autobots. Starscream. I believe we got Thundercracker. Then last but not least, we have Soundwave. So you can see all the Decepticons. So as we said, Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, Thundercracker, Scrapper, I was right, Shrapnel, Astral Train. Now you notice that Astral Train has a secondary card because you can pick his alt mode. He's a triple changer. So he can be a train or he can be the space shuttle. So we'll just flip this over to see the alt modes for all of the Decepticons. Soundwave was a truck rather than a boombox. I guess he does need movement. And there are some sound weapon trucks and stuff, I guess, now that we're seeing in movies. Starscream and Megatron as a tank, since they don't want to show him as a gun. So there you have it. You've now seen the components. As you already did a gameplay overview for the Autobots for the original deck building game, we're not going to be doing it for this one. So keep it right here as Julie and I will be coming back at you with a review of this expansion / core box. All right, now we're going to dive in on Arising Darkness, the second core box for Transformers, the deck building game. And before I toss it over to Julie, we're just going to give you some clarification as to what we've actually played. Currently in front of us, we've got the team versus team mode, the competitive mode, Autobots versus Decepticons. That's the last game that we played. And we also played this cooperatively. If you happen to watch our original review of Transformers, the deck building game, we have tried Autobot versus Autobot. Wasn't really for us. We're not going to be reviewing Decepticon versus Decepticon. It's essentially the same mode. When it comes to the cooperative mode, it's largely the same as well, just different characters. So I'm going to toss it over to Julie, and she's going to tell you what she wants to start talking about first.
Well, I'm going to talk about the fact that I think that the character that you're going to play might have an impact on the way, the style, the way it plays, basically, when you're playing team versus team. Playing with Ironhide, he's very much a block character, so wasn't really on the offensive. So playing this game, I was basically playing to survive. Right, I wanted to avoid hitting the 5 damage, would end the game. Right, and I wanted to basically survive the game out. I wasn't trying to go on the offensive and go after everything because that's not my strength with this.
And I think you're highlighting something though, that our game really ended on a lackluster note. The game that we have in front of us. And there were a couple.
Speak for yourself. I won.
You won, but the way that you won is very lackluster. It's not a very, thematic finish.
It's a very Ironhide finish. I survived all the onslaught of everything.
Yeah, so the way that it works in the team versus team mode, the game will end once all 3 boss adversaries from one side are defeated. You will total up the victory points. The team with the most points will win. The other way that it ends is if there are no more cards to be placed into the matrix, which is how our game ended. Or as Julie mentioned, if one character takes 5 damage, the game will end. Now, one of the reasons we're focusing more on the team versus team mode is because that's the real difference between this and Transformers, the deck building game. You get that whole new mode thrown in there.
I mean, that's the main thing. I mean, besides that, you
get a lot of randomness, actually, that greatly affects the game. And to the point where I don't know if I actually want to play team versus team one-on-one again, not with the setup rules that are specifically in the box, because as you can see here, we got this giant stack of cards. These are all the potential cards that could be in the Matrix. They include Autobots, I'll do it this way, Autobots, Decepticons, different sites, and when you're building the Matrix, you split the cards up and you put them in there. So you don't know if there's going to be a lot of Decepticons, giving the Autobots an advantage potentially, or a lot of Autobots, giving the Decepticons an advantage. There is no even split between what actually goes into the Matrix. So that's something that I may want to change. Julie had a great start earlier on by finding a lot of the Autobots and Decepticons. So she was acquiring her Autobots. I wasn't being able to defeat them. I got really screwed on an ambush where I couldn't defeat one of the Autobots, which just let things get going in victory points for her.
Yeah, so, but as I said to Jason, he was also finding all the technology, all the different things that allowed him to buy technology for cheaper, so...
But it's all about the victory points in the end of the game, and you had a better experience with finding the different characters. And I don't know what the actual balance was. We could probably go through just the decks, who's defeated and who wasn't, and just compare. But you definitely did see more Decepticons than I found Autobots through the game, which led to the point where you could just go ahead and not have to fight the third boss at all. And
well, I also went and, you know, whenever an Autobot was discovered as well, I went and rescued it so that you wouldn't be able to defeat it.
Well, you were very lucky. You'd find them on your own turns. or on your turn, you find a Decepticon.
I mean, so I found the game a little slow. You know, maybe it's because I'm used to playing with other characters where I could be a little bit more on the offensive. This was a lot more, I felt, like I said, like I was sitting back.
It's the bosses. Like, sorry to interrupt there. The bosses are a lot slower when you're playing 1v1 because you cannot get the assists. So
yeah, well, and that's it. I mean, I found both two bosses, basically 2 cards in a row. So I had, you know, and their ambush and start of turn abilities were killing me because I couldn't muster up enough to fight them on my own, given the fact that I kept losing cards at the beginning of my turn.
Mm-hmm. And there's no assist because I'm Thundercracker, not an Autobot, so I do agree with you. The game did feel very slow, which is another reason why when I'm talking about the team versus team mode, it's going to vary a lot with the amount of players in the game, because more cards are going to go into the Matrix, bringing a better balance as to what you have in this stack that's going to be set up on the board and also that's playable. So it's not that I dislike the mode, I don't know if I really like it 1v1, because fighting the Autobot bosses was also not very much fun. It took a while to get the right resources together to defeat them, so sometimes you're just dealing with that start of turn effect and it feels that you're kind of spinning your heels. If you're playing with an actual team, another player can move in and help you out and go boom boom. You're not sharing victory points, that's fine because it's a total team victory points, but just heads up, it drags.
Well, yeah, and that's the randomness, right? Like, I had some really good cards that I was hoping would, and they just weren't chaining together. And then, you know, it just wasn't coming together. Once I was able to flip over one of the bosses so that he wasn't removing cards, I was able to deal with the other one and then, you know, get him. But yeah, it took a long time and I never found the third boss. At that point, I realized that we were going to run out of cards soon, and
you know, you went for the victory point one, which is totally valid. It's the way the game is designed to be played. It's the way the game will end when you're playing competitively just Autobot versus Autobot or Decepticon versus Decepticon. It just feels very anticlimactic, and it's something that I don't think I really like.
Hey, I lost a lot of victory points too, you know, so...
That's a testament to how many of my Decepticon fellows that you defeated in battle. So Ironhide's strong. He might block, but he's also very strong. So you maybe didn't get your cards, you still managed to defeat a lot of Decepticons. But that's the game, and it's just one of those things where I'm definitely a little disappointed about that mode. I'm feeling that I still like the game. I like this box, and we'll talk a little bit more just about the Decepticons and our experience playing as them. But the team versus team mode is very much, I think, team versus team. I'm feeling that unless you really like doing Autobot versus Autobot, Decepticon versus Decepticon, that the 1v1 aspect of the game is a little lacking. But that's fine for us. We prefer playing the game cooperatively.
Yep.
So do you have anything to add on the team versus team mode or no?
No.
So what did you think of Decepticons? Playing as Megatron, the different cards that we got. Did it feel any different than the original, or just like the original but maybe a little bit more vicious?
Yeah, it's just a little bit more vicious from the type of cards and what what's on them. I barely remember Transformers on TV. I remember it a little bit, but again, you were making the sounds as you were transforming, and you seemed to be really into it. I was happy when Jason. I was happy to be playing the good guys again. I just, you can say it's fun playing the bad guy.
Cool. He looks cool, and he flies.
Yes, he does. But yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's fun to have the bad guys because then it adds a little bit more appeal, and it's fun if there's always somebody willing to play the bad guys. So.
What I liked as well, I like the characters. I do like the flight mechanic. I really appreciate the difference with the rise up versus the transform and roll out, which are different cards. So Decepticons get different skills. When you fly, you can move diagonally, which gives you some different ways to move through the matrix. Whereas the Autobots transform and roll out is really focused on assisting. So that would have been really interesting to see those two mechanics come together a little bit more if we'd had, more players for our team versus team game. But I really enjoy the Decepticons. I find that they do things differently. I like the characters. I like the abilities. I like the cards. Some of the cards are really cool, especially the one that was letting me buy technology and maneuvers cheaper. Those are two allies that I got. And then increasing the effect of those cards were very cool. Better allies than anything that I've actually saw in the original game.
You kept buying the technology. I had an Autobot that would have more power for every technology I had. I just couldn't get technology cards because
and flip it over and it's like, it costs $2. It's free.
And there's this site this weapons facility that you kept as soon as the card popped up. Like it was, unless I bought it immediately as soon as I discovered it, you take it out from under me.
Yeah, because I moved to the site, get some energon, and do some cool stuff. So there were some very good cards in this game. But as Julie mentions, the experience are very similar. The encounter deck feels similar. You do have a new damage type here called Short Circuit, which is definitely a little nastier, a little bit
I'm the
more
only
annoying
one that
to get
had
rid
one of those. That was fun.
But other than that, it's primarily similar. I think depending on who your favorite characters are, if you're looking for the cooperative experience or the Autobot versus Autobot, Decepticon versus Decepticon, either box, you're going to be getting a similar experience. And I do think that cooperatively, because there's cooperative schemes in the Autobot box, it may be just a little bit better set up for playing cooperatively because you're the good guys. You want to assist each other. You want to work together. I mean, in this, Starscream can even attack fellow Decepticons, which completely makes sense. It's completely thematic. However, it's really not a useful ability when you want to play cooperatively. It just means the character's just, a little worse. But I like the box. I like what we're getting. I think that we just need to play team versus team at a higher player count. I think that's my summary on the whole thing. Is there anything that you'd like to add at all, Julie?
Nope.
So on that note, give us your score for Transformers, the deck building game, A Rising Darkness.
You might be a little bit surprised, but I'm giving this a 6.5.
I'm not surprised. I can see why, because the way it really dragged. I think both of us were expecting a little bit more out of the team mode, but the way it's baked in the box, I agree.
And I agree to revisit this after we've had an opportunity to play at a higher player count. If we say, hey, you know what, it really is a different game, we can come back, and have a quick video and let people know. But for now, this really is a 6.5. That's exactly as you said. It drags. I can see how adding the Decepticon makes it fun, for those who know the IP, and there's a couple different abilities. So it's still a passing, more than a passing grade, but.
And I'm going to give this a 7. I'm not going to be giving this a giant resounding success. I think it rounds out the game in the way that it needed to be rounded out. But the experience is still very similar. It's just picking your favorite characters. And I do feel that the the rules aren't quite where I would like them to be. Now, we do have a bunch of expansions that we'll be covering in the near future. Definitely at the start of 2023, we've got the Infiltration Protocol box and the Dinobots. We'll be checking those out. We've got good guys and bad guys. How we're going to play that, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll just do some cooperative games. But I do agree with Julie that for the moment, I think the team versus team mode and the competitive mode is kind of on ice. Robin Anna Marie in the Meeple Dungeon said they felt that the best way to play this game was cooperatively, and they like a lot of competitive games, and so far we've agreed with them, and this hasn't changed my opinion. But I do think that at some point we do need to revisit the team versus team mode, and who knows, maybe there'll be some other modes in the other boxes that we want to check out as well. So on that note, Julie, we're now going to
remind everybody to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we have new content for you.
And take a look down below in the video description. You'll find links to all of our social media feeds: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see some pictures of Julie and I playing Transformers the deck building game, or Rising Darkness, or the core box, we're playing on those feeds. The expansions will be there too. Also down there, if you're looking to pick up a copy of Transformers the deck building game and anything by Renegade Game Studios, is a link to multizone.ca, a great Canadian game store. Click the link, you'll get 10% off your next purchase. They also do a whole bunch of Kickstarters, so check them out. Make sure to click the link, as it's a great way to support the channel, as a portion of that purchase will be returned to us. And then popping up in front of us will be links to some of our previously released videos. In front of me will be our most recent release. In front of Julie will take you back to our review of Transformers the deck building game. On that note, we're now going to
grab our drink,
grab our best friend, remind you to keep playing games.